All right. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone had a good little break and stretch your legs a little bit. Um, First off, before we get going on the next session, I just kind of want to comment that, it's good to see that this organization is such a great place. And, thank you for our leadership on the board and Sue leading us during this wonderful pandemic time period. So thank you for the whole board and, Steve and Amy for stepping off. You guys have done a great job. And Joe and Gabriel, congratulations on coming on board. So, off of that, we got our next session here, and we've got Catherine O'Brien, GIS coordinator, and Lisa Huggins, IWMS project manager, both at UNC Chapel Hill. We're talking about light up your data using dashboards. So, ladies, I'll pass it to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I'm Catherine, and you have the rare opportunity right now to see Lisa's workspace and her work from home space. I'm hoteling in her office for this presentation. Now, usually we start these presentations with a quick overview of our university's infrastructure. And today I'd like to include a land acknowledgement. So the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill occupies the ancestral land of the Tuscarora, the Eno, the Shakari, and the Lumbee peoples. It is also home to the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation. And its early funding was funded, the early university was funded by land sold that belonged to the Cherokee and the Chickasaw. And I'd also like to acknowledge the enslaved labor that helped build and fund the university. And I offer this as a way to reflect on how we are connected by land and people, and our responsibility to the resources at our institutions. And so if you know the ancestral land that your university occupies, please feel free to place that into the chat. What we did in this map was take the UNC property boundaries and put them on, overlap them with the native land territories. Since its finding in 1789 and opening its doors in 1795 to its first students, we've grown quite a bit. We have 527 buildings that are aged from 1795 to being under construction right now in 2021. We have 4,000 acres in Orange County alone that we manage. And there are over 20 million gross square feet of office space that supports the university's mission. And on any given day during the work week, there are 42,000 students, faculty, and staff that come into the town of Chapel Hill. There are 32 counties in North Carolina with a population smaller than that of UNC. So you can see what a strain it is on our resources. And today, we're going to look at some of the applications that we provide to our executive team and managers to help them understand what our infrastructure is and to help them support their decision making. And we're doing this through applications and dashboards that are configurable and interactive. And I just want to give a shout out to Esri and all the smart people there who have developed these out of the box, easy to configure dashboards and applications. So the first one we're going to look at is the Facilities Condition Index dashboard. And what I want you to know about the Facilities Condition Index is the index is a ratio of the cost it is to remedy our deficiencies to the current replacement value of a building. We have an FCAP team, a Facilities Condition Assessment Program team, that goes out and they're looking at the health of our systems within our buildings. And they do that through a proprietary database called VFA. I don't know what VFA stands for. Maybe virtual facilities assessment. I'm just making that up. I just know it's proprietary and I can't get to it. So VFA did set up a web service for us that we can pull from nightly and get an XML file that we bring into a SQL database. And then that database, those tables, we bring in as views into the Geo database. And so these views are now in the Geo database that I can access to build REST services, and eventually these dashboards or applications. So I want to just look real quick at an ETL process that I've put together using the interoperability tool in ArcGIS Pro, their workbench. They call it Workbench. And again, this is pulling from those tables that are now views in the Geo database. And I'm using those views to populate the FCI buildings feature class, that footprint, with attributes from these tables. This is a super simple ETL process that is then scheduled to run nightly. And then the FCI buildings is published as a feature service, a secure feature service. And that is what feeds this dashboard. Now, it's a secure service, so you need a UNC login and you need permission to have access to this data. And we manage that through ArcGIS Server. And this dashboard is the Facilities Condition Dashboard for state-supported buildings. We do assessments on all buildings, but this one is filtered for the state-supported buildings because we're going to go to the legislature and we're going to ask for some money, which we don't get really. We get a little bit of it, to remedy these deficiencies. Now, when I first built this dashboard, I want to say I was inspired by some of the dashboards I saw Lisa making, and you'll see some of those later, and inspired by John Hopkins' COVID dashboard. I like the way that dashboard just pops. So some of these color schemes are influenced by that dashboard. But when I first started, it was just a map and this one element. So I just had the map, and I think the pie chart element. And we showed that to Abbas Paran, our director. I love having a boss named Abbas. So he wanted more. He wanted a little more. So we brought, as I mentioned, we brought these other tables in through that VFA process. And over to the left here, we just have some overview elements of the deferred maintenance backlog, the total backlog, the total replacement value, the average index, the amount of gross square footage that we've assessed and the number of buildings assessed. This element, the pie chart, is just looking at a percentage of the condition for each category of the buildings surveyed. And this element below, the serial chart, is showing the total gross square footage that's in good, fair, poor, or severe condition. Now, again, this is all kind of served by a map, and then from that map, we made this app. I can search for a building. I'm going to search for Abernathy Hall, and it zooms me to that building. And if you might not have noticed, but over to the right, this list has changed, and that list now only renders the buildings, a list of buildings that are within this extent. And when I talk about this being interactive, when I click on this building, I'm going to see a little more information about this building. The year it was built, what its index is, the condition rating, and a photo. Kind of just simple stuff that I am grabbing nightly into that geodatabase feature class. If I zoom out, you can see that list grows because it's capturing everything in that extent. So I can go to the Haynes Art Center. I can also change the base map and get imagery. So this is kind of those interactive elements that I've been talking about. Then I want to go back over to this element, the deferred maintenance cost by system, which is, again, a total of the deferred maintenance for each system. And the way I interact with this is I have a hyperlink to the architectural system or category, and then these subcategories that make up the architectural deficiencies. So this is the FCAP portal or website that exists. We can hop over to their homepage while we're here so you can see, oh, here's a disclaimer. I'm going to read it like I read all disclaimers, really, and then accept. And then you see that this is the dashboard they have now on their website for the FCAP team. So that's what we're building. That's what we've built. And this is what they have. So I'm kind of curious who might be also doing ETL processes on their maps and databases. And if you would, just let me know in the chat what ETL tool you are using to bring data from other dashboards. And the only other thing I want to mention is I can see that eventually the executive team might want hyperlinks to reports, more detailed reports for these buildings, or at least what are the deficiencies by system. But I'm not going to kick that sleeping tiger right now, and they haven't asked for it. I've got some other dashboards to build, and that's what I have for the FCI building dashboard. And we're saving the best for last. So Lisa is going to share some of her dashboards she built, and you can see how she inspired me.
Well, thank you, Catherine. You all, any of you who know Catherine O'Brien know she's a hard act to follow, but I'm going to give it a shot. So I am going to share our space management dashboard. And the dashboard provides a visualization and data summary for interior space across campus. This dashboard relies on an Archibus GIS connector tool to publish the data. So all of our floor plans that we have stored in Archibus, we configured the Archibus GIS connector about 2 years ago now to publish that data to GIS. And so once we did that, we're like, well, this is great. What are we going to do with this data? And so we thought we should build a dashboard. And it also relies on some registered SQL views, which have also been really great for us to bring data together. So I'm just going to jump right into a demo of the dashboard. And we don't have the Johns Hopkins look here. We have the Carolina blue. This one predates at least the COVID dashboard. So this is what we always default to Carolina blue. So this is how it looks when you launch it. It does have a security layer that I don't have, that I went ahead and got past for this purpose. But when we launch it, it gives you a portfolio-wide, so campus-wide view of the floor plans. We have a map. We have, summary totals for the whole campus. So total square footage. You can tab over to assignable. Same with room count, total versus assignable. We have 99,700 and some workstation counts. This is kind of our head count capacity for a space, whether it's an actual, workstation or whether it's just a place for someone to sit or a lab to work in, a lab bench. And we also have a lot of nice graphs here, which across the campus, they're not as, you can't really digest it, or it's not really as legible because we have a lot of departments, a lot of room types, a lot of room categories. But once we start filtering down to building and floor, these will become more important and easier to read. We also have some just kind of overall campus stats down at the bottom with how many buildings we have, how many square feet, and then to break that down in academic versus health affairs. So typically when a user comes in, they will have a building in mind. I am going to zoom over to Greenlaw Hall. And you can see the summaries. We set this up kind of to slice and dice. So the summaries update for Greenlaw Hall. You can see the, well, that didn't update. There it goes. That's the total square footage for Greenlaw Hall, the total rooms, workstation count. You get the idea. This becomes more valuable now. We know each department, how much space they're occupying, who's occupying the most space. And you can see down here, we get a picture of the building. We can tab over to building info and get a little more information. What year was it built? What's the address? This does have a hyperlink, so we can jump over to our plan room, which would allow you to pull up any as-built or project information that we have on that building, as well as a whole bunch of other information that we have pertaining to that building. So it's a good way to, jump over to other systems for that building. You can also, as far as the map goes, we're looking at we have floors stacked on top of each other. So we're essentially looking at 3D data in a 2D, format. So it's helpful, of course, to go ahead and filter down to a floor. So let's say we're trying to look at the third floor now. And you can start to make sense of the data. The legend starts to become more valuable. We can see our classroom facilities versus our office facilities on that floor. If we only want to filter out a specific department on that floor, we can do that. And then you see it takes away all the other rooms and just shows us what belongs to that department. So pretty nice and easy tool for getting data, nice filtered and with nice graphics. If you don't have a building or you don't have to come in straight away and go to the building, you don't have to start at the top and go down to the bottom. You can just across campus, let's say I want to search for all the space that the chemistry department has. And so we get a nice summary here. They have 543 rooms, majority of them being laboratories. You can see the total space that they have in laboratory versus office. et cetera. So just a nice, we're using it in this way as a summary tool. And one of the many purposes that you can set up a dashboard. So with that, I also want to share a classroom dashboard. And so last summer, when we were faced with bringing students back to classrooms in a much reduced capacity, the classrooms were of great interest. And so we were able to quickly set up this dashboard with the data that we had already published from Archibus. And it not only shows capacity and layout of the floors, but it also shows seating types. And so I'm going to jump into a demo of this dashboard. And this is actually a story map. So you see these tabs along the top. This is really a story map that each tab is its own dashboard. And so this was a nice way for our users to have all the dashboards in one spot where they could just tab between them. So when we started out bringing the students back, we were only looking at the general purpose classrooms to start with. So we set up that dashboard first. And, when you come here, of course, there's a login, like everything else with our secure layers. There's a login and you get a nice summary. We have 37 buildings that have general purpose classrooms. We have 197 of those classrooms, and then a total of the area and how many, what the capacity of those are. This is full capacity. This is not COVID capacity. That came later, but this was just sort of a planning tool. So one thing we did was to go in and set up, we wanted to be able to scale in a little bit more and look at different buildings. So let's go to Phillips Hall. I'll zoom in a little bit, but we can see quickly that Phillips Hall has 19 classrooms. And here's a list of all of those classrooms and pictures of all of those classrooms. And it's helpful, like with the other dashboard, to pick a floor. So you're not looking at layers upon layers. So if we're going to look at the second floor, we're filtered down to just those counts now. And so if I want to, I can zoom to one particular classroom if I'm interested in that classroom and its capacity, or you can pick a group of, classrooms, so that if I'm interested in these 3 classrooms on the floor, and that's all we're going to use, here's the totals of the counts of the workstation counts, et cetera. And also very helpful were the photos. So, you could get an idea of whether they were fixed seating or chairs and tables that could be moved around. So these are the 3 photos. You don't have to look through all the photos to find your classroom. And, these tools are just so nice that you can, whatever I pick up here, it's going to limit that the photos that it gives me to what you have up here. So just really nice, easy to use tools that are pretty easy to configure as well. And then we just used, symbology, basic cartography to symbolize. We knew hallways would be important as we were figuring out flow of students into classrooms and out of classrooms. That they would need, even if all these offices were closed, they would need to be able to, we would need to, make some pathways for them to the egress, the stairs, the elevators, the restrooms, in and out of the classroom buildings. So just a nice handy tool that could be used in the office as well as in the field as people were doing their planning on campus. And of course, later we realized, hey, we also are going to need to use non-GPC classrooms in order to, have all these classes happen with the capacities that we were restricted to set them up with. So we set that up. And of course, so this map has both non-GPC classrooms that belong to departments, as well as those that belong to the registrar and are for general college to use. So that wraps up my demos. And, to wrap up, dashboards are, pretty easy to set up. They're easy to set up for administrators and easy for end users to use. We've all become accustomed to seeing them and using them. We might have Johns Hopkins to thank for that. And, they can be configured for several different purposes. And so we're a big fan. That's not obvious. We're a big fan. And we found that there's various methods to bring data into GIS. Catherine talked about the ETL tools. We have the proprietary connector tools in Archibus GIS connector. And then really registering SQL views through ArcGIS has just opened up a lot of data for us. You know, we can link to our registrar data and use views in GIS to use that data in dashboards. And so it's just really opened us up to, you know, being able to pull data together. So we think the dashboards by themselves are really cool, but when you can really bring data from different systems, it really, you know, just makes them that much more powerful. And we are going to open it up to questions. I think we have some time for questions, but I did want to point out we do have some resources that or some information about some of these processes and the you know, the resources. And the first one on there is the native lands mapping. So if you don't know what native lands might have been occupied by your campuses, this is a really nice map that you can go and look, and it opened our eyes to seeing that. So would recommend that. And with that, I think I'm gonna look at these questions. Let's see. Catherine, have you been watching the questions? Let's see. Have you linked to class scheduling systems such as 25 Live? We have not at the university. We just got the registrar office and our office are quite separated for whatever reason. And so they just got a new scheduling application, and I'd have to revisit what that might be. But we did get into the registrar database, and that was a big you know, victory for us. But we'll have to look into that. Let's see. Do you track workstation counts for class labs, research labs, and/or office spaces? Yes, we do. We do track workstation counts. We are just recently, a new initiative is to track occupancy for all those spaces as well. And that is in its very infancy of stages. And so we're still working to get that data collected. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling up to see what I missed here in questions. Are you publishing floor plans to Archibus as CAD or GIS files? So in Archibus, our floor plans live as CAD files. And from there, the GIS connector tool publishes them to GIS. So we maintain them in AutoCAD. Maybe that's the way I should say. We maintain them in AutoCAD and we push them to GIS. Someone asked for a document with these resources, and of course we will follow up on how to send out that document, but by all means. And I think that looks like all of the questions, unless I'm missing some from way up top. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so we don't have any more questions, so I guess we will say thank you for tuning in. And if you think of any questions or want to reach out to Catherine or myself, by all means, do so. And we look forward to seeing y'all at the rest of the conference. Oh, there's a final question, which Catherine and I were just talking about Tableau. Do we use Tableau at all? We really want to. We really want to. There's some applications where we've been requested to make some graphics for the dashboard, and we think it might be a better fit. So we are going to look into that. And I think it's time to send it back to Chris.
All right. Well, Catherine, Lisa, that was really good. So real great presentation. I love seeing the dashboards, and it's the epitome of clean, simple, effective. And that's exactly what your upper management and your key stakeholders need. They don't want to get lost in the data. So those dashboards are great ways to convey that information. So great job on that. I'm just still blown back that you have 20,000 square feet of, to manage. That's a lot. But starting to look at the condition index, that's really useful for the campuses and stuff, and how to integrate GIS into that. Real good stuff. A lot of good feedback from everyone. I think that's going to lead to a lot more conversations down the line. Matt, I'll pull you up. We'll take a look at your take on this with the illustrations.
Sure thing, Chris. Sure thing. Information that hit me was really just the being able to pull in more data. That crazy proprietary database with the unknown acronym. That was an interesting thing to hear about. But that's the data that's valuable to your clients, whoever they are within your organization. So finding those sources and being able to having someone give you a web service access to that is a primo way to go. So the more you look, the more data you'll find, and the more you can share. So great way to put them out there. Nightly updates too, photos, all of that stuff. Everything's starting to tie together as I hear through all this conference from yesterday, today, and the whole shebang. So that's my take, Chris. Thank you.
All right. I don't know if anybody caught in Matt's thing on one of his little graphics. It just had it said story map, and it said tab, 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 and then photos. I like seeing that. That's the simplicity of some of this. All right, coming up next, we have another sponsor presentation that'll come up at the 240, 340 mark. And it's Esri talking about campus digital twins with ArcGIS. So enjoy, and we'll see you afterwards.